There are places on Earth that refuse to make sense, not because they are mysterious, but because everything about them argues they shouldn't survive at all. This is Israel, a sliver of land smaller than most American states. No oil beneath it, no great rivers running through it. Almost nothing in the ground worth digging for. And on every side, neighbors who have spent decades trying to erase it from the map. 8 wars in 75 years. By the simplest rules of geography, none of this should still be standing. And yet it is. Look past the headlines, past the borders drawn and redrawn in the news, and you find something almost nobody expects. A sea so heavy, it cannot drown you. A desert that now feeds crops in over 100 countries. A city raised out of nothing but sand and stubbornness. This is Israel, the place that turned impossible into a way of life. The best way to begin a journey through Israel is not in a city. It's at the lowest point on the surface of the earth. Welcome to the Dead Sea. The water here doesn't move like water anywhere else. It sits heavy, almost solid, reflecting the cliffs above it like a sheet of dark glass. No waves roll in. No fish swim beneath the surface. The salt is so thick it holds you up before you even try to float. It doesn't feel like a beach. It feels like standing at the edge of something the rest of the world forgot how to make. Long before anyone came here for the view, Herod the Great built a winter palace on this scorched shore, as if conquering the harshest place he knew was its own kind of proof. The minerals locked inside this water turned out to be some of the most valuable on Earth: magnesium, potassium, bromine. The same water that can kill also heals. The same salt that poisons also preserves. But the sea is shrinking. Every year, it drops almost 3 feet. A coastline that once stretched 50 miles now barely reaches 30. And where the water pulls back, the ground turns dangerous. Thousands of sinkholes now open along the retreating shore without warning, swallowing roads whole. Then, along that same retreating coastline, the desert does something that shouldn't be possible. Fresh water breaks straight out of solid rock. This is Ein Gedi. 2 waterfalls drop down the cliffs here, feeding pools of cold, clear water before vanishing into the salt flats below. Walk 10 minutes inland from bare stone, and you're suddenly standing under fig trees, beside tall reeds, in air 30 degrees cooler than the desert around it. Wild ibex move through the spray like they own the place. Because they do. People have gathered at this one small spring since 4000 BC. Old temples, hidden caves, ancient synagogues, modern farms, all built around the same patch of water, smaller than a few city blocks. The water landing on your skin here fell as rain decades ago. It spent years traveling through the dark inside the rock before finally reaching daylight, long after the storm that made it was forgotten. But the most extreme survival lesson in this valley isn't written in water. It's carved into a cliff above it. It's carved into a cliff above it. Rising 1,300 feet above the Dead Sea, on a flat plateau that looks like an island in the sky, sits Masada. Herod built this fortress not to impress anyone. He built it as a machine for disaster, in case the worst he always feared finally came. Hidden tanks inside the rock could hold nearly 200,000 gallons of water, filled by a single day of rain. 12 storerooms held a decade of food. A hanging palace stretched across 3 levels of cliff, so audacious that even the enemies who later attacked it had to admire what they were destroying. In 73 C, 15,000 Roman soldiers arrived. They moved 500,000 tons of earth just to build a ramp up the cliff face. When they finally broke through, they found 960 people, all dead by their own choice, rather than surrender. That ramp is still there, 2,000 years later, and while this valley taught its lessons in water and stone, far to the south, the desert was teaching an entirely different kind of survival, one written not in rock, but in fire. That's where our journey goes next. The deeper you travel into the Negev, the more one question begins to follow you. How does anyone live out here at all? The desert doesn't get easier. It doesn't get greener. And yet, for thousands of years, people haven't just survived here. They've built entire civilizations on top of it. North of the Gulf of Aqaba, the Timna Valley cuts open like a wound in the earth, 35 square miles of exposed stone, holding 2 billion years of the planet's history in colored bands. White limestone, red sandstone, dark granite underneath it all, and running through every layer, thin veins of green and blue, copper, waiting to be found. People have mined this copper since 3500 BC, making Timna one of the oldest factories on Earth. The ancient Egyptians built a temple here to Hathor, goddess of miners, and ran their furnaces day and night through heat that reached 110 degrees. In the end, the copper never ran out. The wood to burn it did. The bare hills you see today still carry that scar 3,000 years later. It's a lesson the desert never forgets. Push too hard against a place like this, and it remembers. Farther into the Negev, the land tells an even older story, written not in metal, but in stone. This is Mitzpe Ramon. Not a crater from space, but something rarer. A Matsuki, a giant natural bowl found almost nowhere else on Earth. It formed slowly, over hundreds of millions of years, as limestone wore away from beneath the surface, leaving a basin 25 miles long and over 1,500 feet deep. Stand at the rim, and the walls read like a clock running backward. 220 million years of Earth's history, layered in red sand, creamstone, black volcanic rock, and streaks of orange. Down on the crater floor, fossils of ancient sea creatures lie scattered in the dirt beside crystal formations that look like they fell from another planet. Most visitors see only emptiness here. The Negev covers 60% of Israel and receives less than 8 inches of rain a year. But emptiness is the wrong word for it. For over 1,000 years, Bedouin families have read this same land like a map, written in the color of soil, the shape of rock, and the pattern of plants along old paths. Their black tents, woven from goat hair in adjustable panels, keep the inside 15 degrees cooler than the air outside. Without a single machine, their herds move on a calendar tuned to rainfall patterns passed down for generations. Modern architects now study these tents, trying to learn what these families have simply always known. And yet, today, around 35,000 Bedouin live in villages the state does not officially recognize. No electricity, no paved roads, no public services, even as researchers study their water and survival methods and publish the findings for the rest of the world to use. Their knowledge is being studied and saved. Their communities, in many cases, are not. It's the same desert, 2 very different outcomes. And it's a pattern that repeats again and again across this entire country. That's where our journey goes next, into the mountains where the land shaped not bodies, but beliefs. Leaving the desert behind doesn't feel like a long drive north. It feels like entering a different country wearing the same flag. High in the hills of the Galilee, the town of Safed climbs upward in tight blue-painted terraces. Centuries ago, scholars who studied here said the light itself felt different from the light down in the valley, thinner, cooler, somehow sharper. It was on this mountain, hundreds of years ago, that deep Jewish mystics gathered to study the hidden structure of reality itself. The ideas they wrote down here didn't stay in this small town. They spread outward, shaping religious thought across an entire continent. These scholars didn't choose this mountain by accident. They believed the place itself shaped how clearly a person could think. Then, in 1837, an earthquake struck. 4,000 people died in a single morning. And just like that, Safed's golden age of deep thought came to an end. But not every mountain in this story ends in silence. On a different ridge, closer to the coast, another community turned suffering into something that still grows today. Mount Carmel rises straight out of the Mediterranean above the city of Haifa, covered in dark pine forest. Cut into its western face, in 19 perfect terraces, are the bar gardens, fountains, trimmed hedges, and stone paths leading the eye straight up to a golden dome at the summit. The Bar faith began in 19th century Persia. Its early leaders weren't brought here as honored guests. They arrived in chains, sent to a nearby prison city by authorities who saw their teachings as dangerous. And from that chained beginning came this: thousands of volunteers working without pay, in silence, year after year, building something purely beautiful out of a story that began in punishment. It's easy to assume beauty needs comfort to grow. This mountain says otherwise. And while these hillsides were busy turning faith into something visible, far below them, on the coast, an entirely different kind of belief was being built, not in God, but in sand. That's where our journey goes next. On a strip of bare coastline, with no water source, no shade, and no roads, a small group of families once stood and decided, simply, to build a city anyway. It worked. Within 100 years, that empty sand became the White City. Over 4,000 buildings packed along the shore in the same clean, modern style. The largest collection of its kind anywhere on Earth. The whole site is now protected as a World Heritage Place, and the ground underneath it is still soft. The city sinks, slowly, grain by grain, even now. This is Tel Aviv. Today, it produces more new tech companies for its size than almost any city on the planet. The country around it spends more of its income on research than any other nation on Earth. Even its army works like a training ground, teaching skills that quietly go on to build entire companies worth billions. A city with no natural resources behind it decided that unstable ground wasn't a problem to fix. It was simply where you start building. And that single decision, to treat impossibility as a starting point instead of an ending, turns out to explain almost everything else about this country. That's where our journey goes next, into the paradox at the center of it all. We began this journey with one simple question: how does a country with no oil, no major rivers, and almost no mineral wealth not only survive, but thrive? The answer was never hiding in the desert alone, or the sea, or the mountains. It was hiding in the choices people made while living among them. Almost every young person here passes through years of military service before turning 20, learning to solve hard problems fast, under pressure, with no room for error. In a country that has fought for its existence again and again, that isn't a bonus skill. It's simply how you grow up. That same instinct shows up everywhere. In Tel Aviv, it built a tech economy out of empty sand. In the Negev, it built drip irrigation systems now feeding crops in over 100 countries. In research labs across the country, it built medical devices and cybersecurity tools, now sitting inside hospitals and protecting networks in nations that have never heard of the towns where they were invented. None of this came from comfort. All of it came from pressure. This is a nation sitting on a widening crack in the Earth's crust, losing fresh water at 3 feet a year, holding its holiest city on a hill with no river beside it, and building its newest city on sand that keeps sinking. By every normal measure, it shouldn't still be standing. It is, because somewhere along the way, this place decided that impossible was never the end of the story. It was just the starting condition. As the desert sun drops behind the cliffs and the lights of Tel Aviv begin to flicker on along the coast, Israel reveals its quietest kind of beauty. A shrinking silver sea, a fortress still standing after 2,000 years, a crater older than memory, a city built on sand that refuses to stop rising. Maybe Israel's greatest wonder isn't any single place at all. It's the simple refusal to treat impossible as a final answer. If this journey moved you, subscribe and travel with us as we uncover more of the world's most extraordinary places. And tell us below, which wonder hit you the hardest? The vanishing sea, the fortress on the cliff, or the people who learned to read a desert that looks empty to everyone else? Farewell, Israel.